Exploring Mars, we're looking at a story that goes way, way back. Long before cars or screens, humans used to just stand out in the dark, look up, and get totally fixated on this weird little red dot wandering through the stars. Nobody had a clue what it actually was, but that rusty, blood red vibe, it just made us wonder. And honestly, it sparked an obsession that we still haven't shaken to this day. Our whole view of that little dot slowly started to shift. Way back in 1610, this dude Galileo literally just built a tube, stuffed some glass inside it, and pointed it at the sky. Suddenly, Mars wasn't just a dot anymore, it was this blurry little ball. Fast forward to 1877, and an astronomer named Schiaparelli starts drawing these sketchy lines he thought he saw on the surface. He called them channels, but people totally butchered the translation. Boom. Suddenly, everyone thought he'd found alien-built canals. Human imagination just completely ran off the rails. That wild imagination finally caught up with actual tech in the 1950s. You had these absolute legend rival builders dreaming some crazy dreams. Over in America, Wernher von Braun. Over in the Soviet Union, Sergei Korolev. Both of these guys spent their days building terrifying missiles for war, but deep down, they shared the exact same dream. They wanted to ditch the weapons and build ships for the stars. The irony of the whole situation is honestly beautiful. The Cold War is what actually gave them the rockets they needed. These massive machines were meant to carry bombs across oceans, but they realized that the exact same fire could push robots all the way out into the dark. It's this massive cosmic twist of fate where human fear literally transformed into pure curiosity. Getting out there was an absolute mess, though. The Soviet Union tried early on in October 1960. They launched a couple of rockets, and both just totally failed before even leaving Earth. Mars was out here letting us know it wasn't going to be a walk in the park. Then America launched Mariner 4 in 1964. It cruised through the void, flew past Mars in July 1965, and beamed back a batch of pictures. Those were the absolute earliest close-up photos of any planet beyond our own. What's so incredibly funny about those photos is that computers back then were painfully slow. The scientists couldn't just pull up an image on a screen. They actually printed the raw data out onto paper strips, hacked them up with scissors, and colored them by hand with crowns and markers. Putting together that picture was exactly like filling in a giant paint-by-numbers puzzle, just a bunch of brilliant minds doing kindergarten arts and crafts to see another world. And man, the reveal was a total buzzkill. People had been hyping up alien cities or lush green forests for decades. Instead, the Arts and Crafts project just showed a dead moon totally blasted with craters. Mars was definitely not Earth. It was stark, empty, and hauntingly silent. The drama really spiked in 1971. Mariner 9 rolls up, but this colossal dust storm had totally swallowed the planet. The sky was just this angry pink dust hiding everything. The scientists just had to sit on their hands and wait for months. When the dust finally dropped, boom, massive volcanoes and a ridiculously deep canyon just appeared out of nowhere. Meanwhile, the Soviet lander Mars 2 crashed hard into the dirt. Hitting isn't exactly exploring, though. Mars 3 landed safely right after, sent a signal for a few brief moments, and then just died forever. Still, those brief moments proved surviving the drop was actually possible. That paved the way for 1976, when a pair of Viking landers safely touched down. They were the ultimate pioneers, surviving out there in the red desert. They snapped pics and, most crazily, tested the dirt for living germs. But the results were totally maddening. One test screamed that life was there. Another test showed absolutely zero food for life to even exist. Scientists ended up arguing about those mixed signals for 40 years. Mars had just become this massive, unsolvable riddle. After the Viking riddle, people just sorta lost the vibe for it. The red world went totally ghost for 2 decades. No fresh landers went there. When we finally hyped ourselves up to try again, it was brutal. In 1992, NASA sent the Mars Observer, the most expensive Mars ship ever built at the time, and it mysteriously went totally silent right before getting there. Russia launched Mars 96, but it fell back over the ocean and burned up with all of its heavy gear. We desperately needed a win, and in 1997, Pathfinder delivered one in the absolute wildest way. It hit the surface, completely wrapped up in airbags. Landing it was like dropping a giant cosmic bubble wrap ball. It bounced crazily across the rocks, settled down, and popped open its petals. Out rolled this tiny rover named Sojourner, barely the size of a toy microwave. It was the earliest vehicle to ever go for a joyride on another planet. While Sojourner was kicking up dirt, the Mars Global Surveyor was creeping from above. It spotted these fascinating layers of rock that looked exactly like ancient lake mud, and steep gullies that looked just like flowing water had carved them out. It was a massive clue. Mars wasn't always this dry, dead wasteland. But space plays absolutely no games, and a legendary tragedy struck in 1999. A specific engineering team used inches and pounds. Another team, meters and kilograms. The computer got entirely scrambled by the math mix-up. The ship flew way too low and completely burned up in the atmosphere. A simple middle school math mistake literally vaporized a spacecraft. That exact same year, the Polar Lander went silent while trying to dig for ice near the South Pole. A couple of huge losses in a single year left NASA completely shook. But it forced them to rethink everything. They realized giant billion-dollar ships were just too risky. So they flipped the script. They started building smaller, cheaper ships that could fail and try again without ruining the whole vibe. That single mindset shift saved the entire program. Out of that new hustle came spirit and opportunity. They launched in 2003 and landed in 2004 with a super modest goal: just survive for a few months. But these little dudes just kept going. Spirit drove for 6 years. Opportunity rolled for an unbelievable 15 years. It took a totally massive, sky-blocking dust storm in 2018 to finally starve its solar panels. Opportunity sent a final message, went to sleep, and never woke up. Just an incredibly emotional run for a couple of plucky robots. While NASA's rovers were busy making tracks in the red dirt, something massive was brewing back home. In 2002, Elon Musk started this company called SpaceX. His whole vision was to build rockets that could launch, land, and actually fly again. But the real, deep-down, ultimate goal of all of this? It was always Mars. The early days of SpaceX were incredibly sketchy. They tried to launch in 2006, and it blew up over the ocean. Tried again in 2007, blew up again. By 2008, they had completely run dry on cash. They had just enough money for a final, desperate attempt. In September, the Falcon 1 flew, and it actually reached orbit. The company literally survived by the skin of its teeth. Back on Mars, the gear was getting incredibly advanced. In 2012, Curiosity touched down in Gale Crater. This wasn't a tiny toy microwave anymore. This was a straight-up nuclear-powered laboratory on wheels. It found clay that formed in drinkable water. It found organic molecules baked right into the rocks. And it sniffed out methane in the air that strangely rises and falls with the seasons. Down here, methane usually comes from living things. Nobody knows yet if Mars is doing the same thing. NASA sent Maven up there to study that Martian air, and the discoveries were wild. Maven figured out that the sun literally stripped the planet bare. The solar wind just bullied the atmosphere away particle by particle. Stripping a planet of its sky is exactly like peeling a giant, invisible onion, layer by layer, until there is absolutely nothing left to protect it. Mars slowly died from the outside in. Meanwhile, the crazy dream of getting humans there was inching closer to reality. In 2015, SpaceX finally nailed it. They landed a rocket standing straight up on solid ground in Florida. A bit later, they stuck a landing on a floating platform out in the ocean. Rockets could actually be recycled now. The path to Mars was finally opening up. Then came 2021. Perseverance arrived in an ancient lakebed called Jezero Crater. The way it landed sounds totally unhinged. It came down hanging from a flying crane, but it worked flawlessly. Even better, it brought a buddy, a tiny helicopter named Ingenuity, rode under its belly. It tested the thin air and then just casually proceeded to fly 67 times, becoming the absolute pioneer of aircraft on another world. Perseverance also brought along this mind-blowing piece of tech called MOXIE. This little box literally sucked in the Martian air, which is basically all carbon dioxide, and turned it into breathable oxygen. The idea that future astronauts might be out there breathing air manufactured by a robot on a dead planet, that is just a really wild thought to sit with. And the wild discoveries just keep rolling in. In 2024, Perseverance used its radar eyes to spot a buried ancient river delta, proving water was flowing there way longer than we thought. It also found this rock named Chayava Falls. This rock had these dark leopard print spots, holding iron, phosphate, and complex organic carbon. Down here on Earth, those specific patterns usually mean ancient microbes were having a total feast. It is the absolute best clue for ancient life we have ever dug up. Perseverance has drilled 33 tubes of this incredible rock and soil and just left them abandoned in a line in the dirt because bringing them home got way too expensive. While those tubes just sit there, SpaceX is building this giant silver starship meant to carry humans to go pick them up. But Mars is waiting. Space is packed with dangerous cosmic rays that tear right through metal and flesh, and the Martian dust is loaded with toxic chemicals called perchlorates that stick to everything, wrecking machines and hurting lungs. It is a deeply unforgiving place. Ultimately, Mars shows us exactly what Earth could have become. It's sitting out there in the dark, reminding us that entire planets can die, and that life is incredibly fragile. We aren't exploring it just to run away from Earth. We explore it so we never, ever take our precious home for granted. If Mars lost its sky, what's stopping Earth from losing ours? What a beautiful, wild journey. Hey, if you loved wandering through this tale with me, smash that like button, share this with a stargazing buddy, and subscribe so we can keep exploring the cosmos together. Catch you out there, fam!